Now to the cheery news coming from the National Bureau of Statistics that Nigeria's gross domestic product grew by almost 2% in the fourth quarter of 2017. This indicates that the economy has maintained its positive growth since it emerged from a recession in the second quarter of 2017. The full year 2017, however, recorded a real annual growth rate of 0.83% compared to minus 1.58% in 2016. Aggregate GDP was also higher at 31.209 trillion naira in nominal terms, resulting in a nominal GDP growth of 6.99%. The data shows non-oil GDP grew 1.45% in quarter 4 of 2017, while oil GDP grew 8.38% in the same period. Now, while the growth picture in the final quarter of 2017 gave some cause to cheer, a deeper look at the GDP numbers gives cause for reflection on how much more needs to be done by this administration. This next report, put together by Channels Television's business editor, takes a look at some of the good news and the not so good news in the latest NBS GDP data.
The growth report for 2017 released on Tuesday, showing a GDP figure of 0.83% was consistent with the IMF forecast for Nigeria. Analysts consider the growth a step out of the blistering 2016 economic recession, in particular as the fourth quarter GDP posted a 1.92% jump in real terms. This growth was delivered in the main by a few sectors that include construction, transportation, food and beverage, crop production, electricity and gas, as well as mining. Looking deeper into the sectoral breakdown, the non-oil sector turned a positive 0.47% in the year under review, but its contribution dipped a bit lower to the headline GDP at 92.83%. In the oil sector, daily average production was higher in the last quarter of 2017, pushing the sector growth at annualized 4.79% against the 14.45% negative position of 2016. On Tuesday, analysts told Channels Television there's much yet for the Buhari's administration to do in making the GDP count.
The economy is not going to go into recession again. If you study progress, if you look at the figures, even the numbers, from 13 trillion that's 31 trillion in 2017, compare that to 29 trillion, in nominal terms, GDP in nominal terms. So it's been steady progress. And I think, yes, the economy will continue on this growth trajectory, even though it may not be as, as high as we have projected in 2018. But there is hope.
As the Nigerian authorities pore over the 2017 GDP numbers, they will find a number of economic areas that require urgent actions in the current year for a stronger growth numbers and delivers more positive impact on the rising population. Boston Namafaye, Channels Television News.
Now, joining us on the news at 10 is the Chief Executive of Financial Derivatives Company, Mr. Bismarck Rwani. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you,
I'm quoting you now when you say it looks like gold, but is it really gold?
Yes, it is. But
what's your assessment of this?
It's good news in the sense that we've had 3 consecutive quarters of positive growth and increasing, for that matter. It's broad-based because 5 of the sectors that grew the most actually had serious impact. One was transportation. That has a lot of linkages between urban and rural activity. Second was electricity, which you know that we are above 4,000 megawatts. And third was oil, which was 8.38. And finally, agriculture and construction. These sectors, apart from agriculture and oil, were all in negative quadrant last time. Now, the 5 other sectors which didn't do so well, which were negative, have limited impact. Insurance is down by about 13%. Courier is down. And again, real estate. That is difficult because real estate and cement actually declined. Right. So it shows you that buildings are a lagging indicator. They come behind the growth. But what is important is to look at where we were in 2016 Q4 and where we are in Q4 2017. Of the 8 indicators, 5 were positive and 3 were negative. Those 5 positive, GDP growth itself went up from minus 1.73 to plus 1.92, which is 3.49% positive growth. Inflation came down from 18.55 to 15.37, and in fact, it has gone lower. Exchange rate went from 490 in the parallel market down to 363, so it appreciated by 35%. And oil production went up from 1.76 to 1.91. And more important, the purchasing manager index went from 60 to 68.7. However, unemployment went up from 35%, and unemployment went from 35% to 40%, which means that there was a negative movement of 4.8%. And the misery index went from 53.92 to 55.90. So what do we need to do? We need to make sure that the data is positive and the impact is felt. It's about impact, it's not about data. There's progress, but it's not yet success. So we cannot celebrate success until the progress crystallizes. Now, comparables.
How do we do that?
Well, you need to do that. One, the lending rates are too high, so that needs to come down. You need to increase credit to the private sector, which has been growing very modestly, and the infrastructure investment. All of this ties around the budget. So without a budget, so the National Assembly has to come to terms with the fact that they must approve the budget immediately. If not, the executive cannot deliver. There's no way you can go to a ring with your hands tied behind your back. The National Assembly has to do something immediately. Secondly, the Monetary Policy Committee, you have to now actually approve or ratify those appointments that have been made by the nominees that are made by the President, so that the Monetary Policy Committee can act and respond to maintain stability if there's going to be inflation, whilst the spending and investment goes on and continues, so that you can feel an impact.
If they can also act on the issue of interest rates.
Yeah, of course, the Monetary Policy Committee can now work on not only directionally, but actual interest rates, because one of the highest cost items for the government is borrowing domestically, choking out the private sector, and also actually clamping down on the growth rate that you can get with the domestic sector of the government. Yes. Now, having said that, you must accept that the National Assembly has to act now, because we are at the end of February and nothing has happened. It's not even on the agenda. So the people, the government, the National Assembly, and the people are all going to suffer if nothing is done about this. Now, coming down to how do we compare? Nigeria has 2.35% of the world's population, but produce only 0.65% of global output. We are the 26th largest economy in the world, but there's work that needs to be done. Germany, on the other hand, has half our population and produces 10 times our output because of productivity. Why? Because they invest in infrastructure, because they have a constructive and functional government system where both the National Assembly, the executive, and the people are all aligned. This we haven't got. We are still at the premature stages of what we call illiberal democracy.
Right.
All right? And that's what we have. And then if you compare ourselves to Africa, you see the slide there. In Africa, we are seeing that Nigeria has kept interest rates where they are and has been able to bring down inflation to 15.13 and has been able to achieve income per capita of only $2,458. Ghana brought down interest rates 4 times last year and was able to grow at 9.3% in the third quarter, the same period. So, and what more? The inflation came down to 10.3. Ghana is a small economy compared to Nigeria. You are comparing apples and apples, but at the same time, there are lessons to be learned, that the institutions are strong and there's functionality of government between the legislation and the executive, and the people are all aligned and carried along, you can achieve a lot. So in summary and in conclusion, the economy is on the right track. The economy is going to recover, but something has to be done to make this recovery impactful so that people can feel it wherever they are. Unemployment is no good, especially when you're going to an election year.
Now, as we're rounding it up, one would take a look at all the figures, and people will say, well, for buffs like you of figures, you can piece it together. But the key point from everything that I seem to have gotten here is the issue of the employment, unemployment, underemployment.
Yes.
Is there one thing that you've seen that needs to go now, or that needs to be done right now, if that is to be altered positively and for it to be sustained?
2 things have to happen. One, the commitment to invest and approve the budget has to be done so that capex can be done, because there's urban and rural unemployment. Urban unemployment is very high. Rural unemployment, because of the growth in agriculture, is taken care of. But urban employment is where people are restless and where they can become probably dysfunctional. So we need to do something about transportation, railway, power. And right now, you see there was a contract awarded for the Ibadan-Kaduna rail.
Yeah.
So the Ministry of Transport is on top of its game. And if they can be given the resources, but without the budget being passed, there's nothing they can do. So it comes back to the National Assembly. The National Assembly cannot hold the executive to ransom. The executive has to compromise with the National Assembly so that the people can benefit from this economic activity that is going on.
Thank you very much for your thoughts at this time, Mr. Bismarck Rouhani, Chief Executive Officer of Financial Derivatives Company. Thank you so much. Thanks for staying tuned. And now time to move news focus to the nation's capital, Abuja, where Ibrahim Adra is waiting with more stories. Hi, Ibrahim.
Well, Ladi, the first story from this end is connected to the economy you were discussing with Mr. Rouhani earlier on. The president has given the assurance that the government will not relent in its effort to stabilize the naira and further improve the nation's foreign reserves. President Muhammadu Buhari, who was speaking in Abuja at the opening of the National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressive Congress, asked Nigerians to support the security agencies to enable them overcome the current challenges facing the nation. He applauded members of the party for restoring Nigeria on the path of growth and development.
It is the National Executive Committee meeting of the All Progressives Congress as the party meets to strategize in its bid to win the 2019 general elections. The national chairman of the party sets the tone for the meeting with an appeal to members to work in synergy for the victory of the party at the polls.
I would want to make a passionate appeal that everything, underline, everything be done to minimize the stresses within the party, to minimize the disputations within the party, and to ensure, do everything to ensure that we are in fighting shape come 2019.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who presided over the meeting, recounts the achievements of his administration as he pledges to continue working to improve security and the nation's economy.
We have stabilized the naira, increased our foreign reserves from 20 billion to 40 billion. Inflation rate is down with considerably less resources available to the country. We have improved all indices towards a stronger economy.
At the end of the meeting, the governor of Kogi State briefs journalists.
And relying on Article 13 of our Constitution, which empowers the NEC to carry out the functions of the convention, the NEC has decided to extend the tenure of the current NWC and other executive committees at various levels till for another 12 months, starting from June 30th.
Noteworthy during the meeting, which was attended by governors and members of the National Assembly elected on the platform of the party, was the glaring absence of the President of the Senate, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Yakubu Dogara.